It's somebody needs to be curious
Yeah. Can you
and be
say more
able
about what that means?
not to react, but to say, well, tell me more about this. Help me understand this. I want to understand where you're coming from. Okay. And being more receptive to listening, at least, or here's what I hear you saying. Boom, boom, and boom. Is that right? Am I getting this? And being able to hang out until that person says, yeah, you're getting what I'm saying. They feel heard.
And oftentimes in communication, couples don't listen. They are defending. They're just waiting. And in the silence of the when I'm sitting here listening, what I'm actually doing is I'm creating more defensive beliefs and more defensive stance just to double down on why my perspective is accurate.
Right. And I want to say, just listening to this sounds simple. Get curious. This is hard to do
So simple.
when
Yeah.
you're triggered, right? Boom. You dissociate whatever comes up, boom, boom. You're in your limbic brain. In IFS speak, there's no self present. You're blended with this part, and away we go.
And we talk about the visual of the boardroom with the little kids in backpacks, and all these kids are just at the in the boardroom, just arguing, throwing food, having a food fight, arguing with each other. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Deb, I picked one. Well, what bias would you like to explore?
So I think another fun cognitive bias to talk about is loss aversion. That's a big one for many people.
What is loss aversion?
So loss
Averting a
aversion,
loss, right?
it is at its simplest, it's an aversion to an I prefer not to lose, and so I will do everything I can to make sure that does not happen.
So
Now there's a
be a
lot of
belief
blend.
that any loss is bad. No way are we going to lose anything.
It's not only just I don't like to lose, I have an aversion to losing. And it becomes a very rigid way of thinking because there are at times a necessary loss, but in the bigger picture, such as when the stock market may pull back a bit, and or there's a blip of news in the news cycle or an event that's happening and stocks react to it and a stock price may go down. And people go, oh, no, I can't lose. And I sell. They sell at the bottom, they buy at the top, right? And so that loss aversion is really very counterproductive. It's self-defeating.
So let me spin that. Not it's not spin, but translate that for me. It's one thing to say I don't like losses because I don't like to see my portfolio go down. Um, however, I'm not going to sell out aversion like I can't take this. I have so much anxiety. This is going to continue. I'm going to lose everything versus, oh, I don't like this loss. But you know what? It's an opportunity to rebalance. It's an opportunity to buy more of what's going down because in the big picture, I believe that eventually it will recover.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not as much motion being triggered, or I've been successful in the part that's going, oh my God, it's going down. No. To
Yeah.
be with that part and acknowledge it. Yeah. Yeah. And I understand the good intention is, of course, we don't want to lose everything. And here's some more information.
Now, here's the other piece. Let's put it in the context to spending and saving. One partner has more of a comfort level to spend, but the person with loss aversion does not even want to see a bank account or a checking savings account figure go down. They cannot even tolerate seeing their deposit level or their balance show a lower balance. So at all costs, we have to maintain that balance, which means the partner who spends, who may not be doing so in any problematic way, just spending, it becomes, what are you buying? Why are we spending it on that? We need to buy less. Maybe we shouldn't have bought 5 towels. We could only, we don't. So what that we have, 3 children and 5 guests coming and in-laws coming to visit, and we only have 2 towels. That's fine. That's fine. It's enough for everybody. And I'm making a very extreme case, but the point is that it gets to be very rigid again. The person who doesn't want to spend and is loss aversion, I don't want to see the bank account balance go down.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm applying it to, I've never applied it right there, and it makes sense. I've applied it to a person who has great loss aversion, usually in money script categories, a money vigilant.
Mhm.
And if there's the money script that if your balance is going down, especially from spending, you're going backwards.
Right.
That you're spending your principal. This is not good.
We're losing financial ground here.
Exactly. So I guess from a spending standpoint, that makes a lot of sense, and it really gives a lot of problems to people when they retire.
I was just about to say it must also come up in retirement a lot as a
Big
financial.
time, big time, because the common denominator of people that have wealth, typically, not everyone, but let's just say 80%, is not what they earn, not their profession, not what they invest in. It's frugality.
So what do you mean when you say wealth? People who have, how do you define what wealth is?
Well, we could go off in lots of directions on wealth.
Expendable income, you mean?
Yeah, let's talk about building net worth. Talk about it in dollar terms. They tend to be frugal. They can adapt to just about anything and spend less. And they've spent less so that they can save more. And it's worked for them. And they have the money script: do not spend your nest egg, whether it's in cash, whether it's invested in the market, because that's losing ground. Now you come to the time in life where you have no outside income anymore. You've got to rely on that portfolio to spend.
Right.
And so many people have a hard time with that, or they'll reduce their lifestyle to their pensions and Social Security because we can't draw on that. That's for emergencies.
And to be fair, there are, couples who are getting towards the end of their earning years do have to be vigilant, and they have to be mindful and conscious about what they spend and how far their money will stretch. So to the listener or viewer, we're not in any way saying that this is a negative to be mindful or conscious. What we're saying is when there's an overabundance of worry and there's an over rigidity around spending because of that loss aversion.
Exactly. And I think of Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, who purportedly had lots of wealth, but he only burned one chunk of coal at a time. He ate the poorest of the poor when it comes to food. He was way over, driven by his money scripts, driven by his little t or big T traumas.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. How do I recover from that? What do I do if I have this fear?
I think it's a good question, actually, because I'm glad before we close that we do talk about that the individual who has a over abundance of worry, if it's about loss aversion, looking at where in their past this comes from. Are there experiences that connect to their now belief that the cognitive bias that I loss aversion? Is there a trauma or traumas that are attached to it? Where actually is the evidence that says to lose or give up a little in a balance or a bank account or an investment long term is a negative. So there's got to be some logic applied to this because it's an illogical thought process. So logic is helpful here. We're also looking at the emotions of what drives this and what going forward are they willing to do to change, to modify their behavior and their beliefs just enough that it doesn't send them into a tizzy because they're abandoning that protector part that's looking to do its job of protecting the pain and the exile, but enough to allow it to see that the world won't fall apart if they take little steps towards behavior modification.
Yes, absolutely. In working with those parts to understand in IFS, we go back to, we'd work with the vulnerable part and go back to when did this belief first pop up? What happened? When did you first start feeling this way? Oftentimes it'll go back to some childhood event where there was a loss of something. It could be money. It could be a thing. That part never grows up. That part, the protectors stop in, say, this is never going to happen again. You're never going to feel this way again, whether it's fear, violation, hurt.
Yep.
And it never has its day to be witnessed and seen. So, and I think big tenet in counseling, you can tell me this is right or not, is telling your story maybe for the first time ever that has been forgotten or there's huge shame around, and being received with non-judgment. Wow. Empathy, connection,
compassion,
passion. Yeah.
and having compassion for yourself, having your story and your own experience witnessed and validated, or of course validated because this is what happened, but also allowing other perspectives in, because there may be a perspective that we carry that's false. Remember, cognitive biases come out of an assumption we make on a very core level about something that we have very little information about. So when we're in trauma, where you have a very narrow perspective, we don't allow in other pieces of information, other bits of information that could help balance the thought and the belief. Yet when we allow other people's words in, our partner, conversation, now we can perhaps shift a bit because we may not have taken into consideration the things that will help us reorient or change how we want to be and what we want to change about our own belief and behavior.
Excellent stuff, Deb. We're going to have to leave it there.
Another wonderful conversation.
Thanks so much. And we will see everyone next time.